Donald Trump absolutely torching the NBC reporter that he did an interview with. This is his first interview since being elected, kind of a big interview, right? And he's like, come on, lady. Like, you know, if you could just try and be a little bit non-biased, like maybe be able to see the forest for the trees for just a second. Here he is just reading her the riot act. He said some really substantive stuff too, but let's start with the fun one.
All evidence.
Let me ask you this about January 6th.
I wish you could be if you know, you have such potential. If you could be just non-biased, you hurt yourself so badly. I'm telling you, they deleted and destroyed all the evidence. Everyone knows it. And you slough it off like it doesn't mean anything.
No, I'm just saying they deny it. That's all I'm saying.
Kristen, if I did it, you would be standing up in that chair shouting at me. And you know what I'd do? I'd say, you got me. They have done something so illegal. They have a committee sworn to, and because it was so bad, the only reason they did it is because the testimony turned out to be in favor of me.
You know what he thinks of the media. But again, I just go back to how we started the show. Can you blame him when you look at the Washington Post reporter effectively, you know, outing all of these CEOs, giving their information out and saying, going on TV and saying she understands why this happens, and you know maybe more need to go. I'm sorry. Jeff Bezos, you got a problem. You got to clean up in aisle 6. Anyway, Trump says he's not backing down. He's not backing down from anything, including what he believes went down in the 2020 election. Listen to this. Priceless.
Sir, I don't have to tell you this because you've talked about it. It comes at a time when the country is deeply divided. And now you're going to be leading this country for the next 4 years. For the sake of unifying this country, will you concede the 2020 election and turn the page on that chapter?
No. No. Why would I do that? But let me just tell you, when you say the country is deeply divided, I'm not the president. Joe Biden's the president.
But you're going to be the president.
No. I'm not the president. So when you say it's deeply divided, I agree. But Biden's the president. I'm not.
He's right.
And he has been a divider. And you know where he divided it more than anything else, and it probably backfired on him, I think definitely, is weaponization. When he weaponized the Justice Department and he went after his political opponent, me. He went after his political opponent violently because he knew he couldn't beat him. And I think it really was a bad thing. And it really divided our country.
Sir, Democrats have control of the White House now. They didn't in 2020. If they are going around stealing elections, why
when you
didn't
say
they
Democrats have control now
of the White House?
Yeah.
So why didn't they steal this election? Since they have more power now.
Because I think it was too big to rig.
So you won't.
It's too big to rig.
To the people who say that you're now directing your Justice Department to investigate 2020, and they want to move on.
Very capable. I think Pam is going to be great.
Precious resources.
By the way,
is that what you want them to do?
Just so you know, I have the right to do that, but I'm not interested in that.
Oh, you're not. You're not going to do that.
I'm not interested.
Okay.
I have the absolute right. I'm the chief law enforcement officer. You do know that. I'm the president. But I'm not interested in that. You know what I'm interested in? Drilling and getting prices down and stopping people from pouring into our border that come from prisons and mental institutions.
And that's why he got elected. I mean, I would just say this. I know, and I know him, and I've heard that before. I asked him myself when he was in the White House, why didn't you go after Hillary Clinton? And he said, because you know what? I don't want the country to be that. I want to move forward. I don't want to be like some kind of Latin American dictatorship. Sure enough, they became a Latin dictatorship, right? What do you think we've been seeing? For the last 4 years, case after case, 2 federal, plus Alvin Bragg's, plus Letitia James. Alvin Bragg's got tossed. Letitia's is about to be thrown out in the Court of Appeals. If she were smart, she would actually back down first. Oh, Fani Willis is just a disaster. She's in the news again today because she's refusing to cooperate with investigators who are looking into just exactly what went down between Fani and the feds. What kind of cooperation was actually happening behind the scenes to help guide her in her case? I mean, after all, the BF, the boyfriend, kept showing up at the White House, right? All while charging taxpayers there in Georgia. Well, look, I mean, I would just say this isn't about like revenge, but it is about making sure that no individual gets subjected to what Donald Trump was subjected to ever again. right? Both sides. Because look, they did it to him. Sure, he could do it to them, but it's not about doing it to one another. It's making sure that you're clean of all the kinds of things that they can try and use and the sort of tactics that they take to go after one another. But the other big thing that came of that interview, and I want to point to this because this is important, is Donald Trump talking about how, it doesn't really make sense that we're bankrolling every country out there and they don't do a darn thing for us and they leave the borders wide open and yet we keep giving them aid and we give them breaks on different things. And he wants to solve that vis-a-vis tariffs. Take a listen.
We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. We're subsidizing Mexico for almost $300 billion. We shouldn't be subsidizing. Why are we subsidizing these countries? If we're going to subsidize them, let them become a state. We're subsidizing Mexico, and we're subsidizing Canada, and we're subsidizing many countries all over the world. And all I want to do is I want to have a level, fast, but fair playing field.
Seems like a fair thing, right? And as you heard him say, his number one goal is to get prices down, to seal the border, and to get the economy rip-roaring again. I mean, look, he delivered 6.4% GDP growth to Joe Biden. Joe Biden's handed back 2.8%, and barely that, right? Because of all the inflation that we've had to suffer from. And yet Obama is out there doing his grand tour, saying crazy things like this, claiming that somehow the Republicans stole the election, they're going to take this grip on power and they're going to stick with it, and da-da-da-da-da. I mean, is this like Russia? Is this like some kind of inverted version of that? Here is Obama. If you missed this last week, you got to listen.
There are going to be times, potentially, when one side tries to stack the deck and lock in a permanent grip on power, either by actively suppressing votes or politicizing the armed forces or using the judiciary, the criminal justice system to go after opponents. And in those circumstances, pluralism does not call for us to just stand back and say, well, I'm not sure. That's okay. In those circumstances, a line has been crossed, and we have to stand firm.
Okay. So you can expect more than that. I mean, I would just say, guys, you know what? If you actually had candidates that could, one, campaign, and two, do their jobs once they were there, we wouldn't be in this situation. Don't forget, 6.4% economic growth, and that included, think about this, that included a disaster, right? You had March 2020 thrown in there, and yet Biden was somehow able to make it so much worse.